Thank you and welcome to the show today. The topic this morning is the Somalia pirate crisis. And of course, we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the crisis in Somalia dealing with the pirates, Mr. Robert Pickard. And of course, Pickard is a professor at Tennessee State University and Middle Tennessee State University. And of course, Pickard, let me welcome you to the show this morning, Professor Pickard.
Thank you for inviting me back.
And to tell you how delighted we are to have you, especially to talk about the topic that we have outlined today, and that is the Somalia pirate crisis. And of course, we do that recognizing that you've spent quite a number of years involved in foreign service, and especially service on the continent of Africa. And so we hope to use your experiences there today to talk about some of these issues involved with the Somalia pirates. Let's start off, Professor Pickard, by having you to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of your foreign policy kinds of information that eventually got you involved in Africa.
Well, as you know, I was an undergraduate at MTSU and came under the influence of Dr. Jack Turner there, who is a specialist in international relations, and went on to study basically U.S. foreign policy, and when I got my master's in history. Later, and same thing when I got my master's in public policy at George Washington. And I spent some time, I was in the Peace Corps for 2 years in the Philippines. That's where I met my wife 30 years ago. And working on a daycare program, some other administrative things there. And then I worked as a teacher and administrator in a refugee camp in the Philippines. We were teaching Indo-Chinese refugees at the time, Laotian, Cambodian, and Vietnamese, and Chinese from all three countries. And then from there, I applied for the United Nations volunteer program, which is a little bit like Peace Corps, except that they have a little higher standard for who they take. They take people from all over the world. They pay a little better, actually. And you're doing basically a professional job. I was initially recruited to work with CARE. You've heard of CARE, of course. They were, in fact, ELU CARE, Emergency Logistical Unit of CARE, to distribute food. And to make a long story short, I was transferred into another program where I was a program officer, and I was sent out to do the work of well, basically work that UNHCR couldn't get their own people to do. They had to set up and build and manage a field office, and also provide some services and try to coordinate the work of different voluntary agencies that were working in this particular area of Somalia where I was working. And so I spent a year there working on that, and also traveled a little bit in Africa after that. I've not been in Africa since then. That was been quite a long time ago, in the 1980s, but I've kept up with those issues. One of my scholarly interests is U.S. relationships with the developing world, with Africa, Asia, Latin America. You know, of course, Somalia is quite a bit in the news right now, and I can tell you there's a lot more to it than the pirates.
Okay, well, as a matter of fact, that's why we would like to talk to you. We wanted to talk to you in order to understand, essentially, over the last minute that we have before our first commercial break, what we'd like to do is to sort of understand exactly what is going on in Somalia, and some of the economic, political conditions and situations that have created the situation for these individuals to get out on the ocean and look for efforts in a real sense supporting themselves. And so when we come back during the second section, then we'll get into a discussion dealing with that. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
The odds of this daughter of a clergyman spending...
The topic is the Somalia